G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and those that are going to bring value to your Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and I'm joined by Kays. How you going, mate?
Good morning, Hef. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Just had a few technical issues getting the stream up. Thanks to the lovely people at Telstra for making my internet drop out. On 9 a.m.
I learned some new swear words this morning, thanks to Hef. Jeez, I've never seen a man more under pressure when the internet dropped out.
I thought it was actually pretty cool, calm and collected. That probably says more about me, though, than it does about the words you've heard in the
calm and
past.
collected. I'm not sure what angry is.
All right, we're at least up, so that's the reason. So just first of all, I guess apologies for the early start. We just thought we'd smash it out because we both had today off, so thought we'd get it done earlier in the day and keep everyone in our families happy. And yeah, but anyway, we'll get stuck in. But first, Kays, is it too early to crack a remedy kombucha?
Look, it might be a sipper for today, but I've had one coffee this morning, so a cola isn't a bad way to kick off the morning.
Well, I'm a kombucha.
9:07 a.m.
I'm a kombucha-holic, so I'm drinking them for breakfast, lunch, and tea.
Exactly.
Drinking them in the middle of the night. Can't live without them. So.
You can't be hungover on kombucha if you don't stop drinking them. That's Hef's motto.
Correct. So make sure you get it into you. We're on the colas today. Hef's favourite.
It's a good cola.
Yeah, it is a good brand. Good label anyway. All right. So I guess we'll start with just a few things that have been going on during the week. So I think there might have been a bit of confusion. I think some people thought the guest was on this week, but they're actually on next week. We just recorded it super early because it's the only time we could get them.
Yep.
So we've been putting out some cryptic clues and no one's even guessed it yet in the comments. So no one's even gotten close to it in the comments.
Pretty cryptic. If I didn't know the answer, I'd probably be scratching my head.
But that's the point though. I wanted to drag it out over 2 weeks. So I didn't want people to be able to get it straight away. Wanted to make sure it was cryptic and it was, we could wait for later to reveal it. I will actually start putting out some clips from it later in the week though.
Ooh.
So you might get a bit more. Try to pick something that isn't so gives it away too easily. So you have to think still as well. But the clues we've had so far are mountain, parade and European. So we'll have another one coming out Wednesday, another one Friday, and then I'll probably put out some clips early next week before it actually airs to give it away or try to give people some more clues as to who it is. So yeah. Anyways, Kays, let's explain the pod for today.
Yes, if you haven't been listening to the first couple, we're going to go over 3 clubs today. Today is Geelong, Gold Coast and Greater Western Sydney. So basically we're running through some of the Keeper League relevant players from those sides. We're not touching any of the rookies once again. That's all in our podcast we did a while ago with touching on all the rookies that got drafted last year. We're talking about the established players who have been there for 2+ years. So also keen to note that if we do talk about where to draft them, we are talking about that in an established Keeper League, not a startup Keeper League or a general draft league. It's all about as if we've been playing for, 2, 3, 5, 10 years.
Yep. And we don't talk about the rookies, the draftees as well, because we have done so much stuff around draft time for our members at that point. So they're probably sick of hearing about the draftees. I've heard that much about them. So if you want to get information on the sign up as a member and grab all the information. That includes all their fantasy scores from all their junior careers as well. You're looking confused, Kays. What's up?
No, I'm just looking at the show doc.
Oh, okay.
There's something that's very much missing on a big day like today.
I guess before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that the land we're recording on today is the land of the Kaurna people. That's our local country. And we acknowledge the relationship of the Kaurna people and the respect. We respect their values and connection to the land, past, future, and present, current day. So we thought we'd add that in before we start. We acknowledge that it can be a difficult day for some as well. So we thought we'd chuck that in there.
I'd also like to acknowledge that today is Jack Bowe's birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Jack Bowe.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Very important day,
The co-driver of the bus. So,
I thought Ben Keys. Oh, okay. So he's in the front seat.
Yeah. So then Jack's next to him.
Right.
I'm down the back with all the lads.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Having beers.
Yes.
Classic coach. Want to be one of the young lads.
Correct.
All right. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. We'll talk about Geelong first. All right, Kays, you've got a best 22 for us, I believe.
Sure do, Hef. So we're going to kick off in the back line for Geelong, starting with Jack Henry, Lockie Henderson, Jake Kolajasny, and Tom Stewart, Mark Blitzars, and Mark O'Connor in the half back line. Through the wings, Isaac Smith, Cam Guthrie, and Brandon Parfitt. Half forward line of Luke Dahlhaus, Jeremy Cameron, and Sean Higgins. Then our forward line of Graham Myers, Tom Hawkins and Gary Rowan, with Reece Stanley in the ruck, Paddy Dangerfield and Mitch Duncan on the ball. Interchange of Joel Selwood, Sam Menegola, Asava Radigalia and Jordan Clark. And my emergencies are Jed Buse, Sam Simpson, Quinton Narkle and Zach Tui.
Zach Tui at the very bottom of your list.
Yeah, just scrapes in best 26.
I think that's a big omission. I think it's one of the glaring omissions there, really, especially for a flag that's a team that's pushing for a flag.
Yeah.
I see him in that best 22. I think a lot about listeners do as well.
Which role does he play in that side?
Half-back role, maybe in Mark O'Connor, or even comes in for Jordan Clark, I guess. Or even you've got a Sava Radigalia in there as well. That's kind of interesting as well, considering they're playing Cameron and Hawkins. I know you think they needed more height, but I was thinking if they did want to go that route, they might go with like a young key defender. Like who they got? I think Sam DeConning's one of them. I think they got another one.
They don't have many. That's the issue. They've got no height. So apart from Henderson and potentially blitz halves, Henry, Kolajasny, O'Connor, they're all around that 190. They're not really key position players. And who's going to second ruck when Stanley's not there? I think Radigalia almost has to play just purely because there's no one else to slot in there.
Well, the other thing is as well, like Blitzars, you got him in defence, I guess, as well. So that's why I was kind of bringing up maybe it's time to blood one of those young key defenders, because if you watched Geelong closely last year, like Blitzars didn't play in defence a lot, and that's why they persisted with Harry Taylor for so long, is because they just could not get rid of him because they needed him in that defence as a pillar.
Now he's gone.
But
so
I know. But that's what I mean. Like they just, if they wanted to, they could have turfed him and played blitz half back last year.
Yeah.
But that's not how they structure up.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how they do line up. And look, I think with the Tui one, you could swap him for Geordie Clark, but I think it's Jordan Clark time. I'm thinking that they've got to. He was going to leave in the pre-season or the postseason last year. That was all the rumours. But, you got to play him at some stage. Otherwise, Zach Tui, he's a good servant. And, Geelong always seem to have a couple injuries, so he'll probably be playing.
Was Constable in your best 26?
God, good joke.
Oh, that sucks because he's such a good fantasy player when he gets a game.
Once again, he should have left when he had the chance.
We might kick off with Charlie Constable anyway. So, look, he only had 2 games last season. He averaged 62, which is a BCV of 77.5. From those 2 games, that's what he scored, I guess. His best score of the year was 68, which is an 85 BCV. That was against Fremantle. Had 58 the following week versus West Coast, and then he was dropped. We all remember he had a huge 2019. His debut season, he averaged 83.4, which is huge for a first-year player. Look, only went under 80 twice in the 7 games he played in 2019 as well. So it'll be interesting just if anything has changed this year. There's questions over his aerobic capacity, which has always been the knock on him, and he just doesn't have the tank to compete at AFL level. With all the gun midfielders they have as well, and then the 2 new faces they brought in, which can also run, well, at least on wings. Well, Smith will probably run on a wing, and Higgins could definitely go through the guts. I don't know how he gets ahead of any of those players. I just can't see him getting a game this year, Kays. I'm with you. If you have him and can stash him, he's probably worth it, because if he does request a trade, or Geelong are getting to that tipping point where they're kind of having a crack this year and they should fall off a cliff soon. But I've been saying that for 10 years. But yeah, look, I think if he goes another season without playing, there's a fair chance he'll request a trade. So hold him if you can, but it would want to be a deep league.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. There's a few of those guys around the place at different clubs who just aren't getting a game, whether it's an issue with the coach or, they've got a bit of a deficiency in their game, that you can see that there's some quality, especially fantasy-wise, they're just not getting that sniff. Looking through that team, it's bloody hard to see who he's going to nudge out. And, Sam Simpson had such a good year last year. Narkle was a very good player. They're not even in that best 22 there. And going to throw Tui or someone else in the mix. It's just, he seems to be well done, the order there. So, yeah, tough one if you own him. I just don't know what to do. There is light at the end of the tunnel if he can get that game and he's going to be good, but do you really want to hold him for a whole season and potentially not see much? It's a tough one.
Definitely.
I'm going to talk about Mark Blitzarves, the centre-half back now for Geelong, according to me. But and realistically, he's probably one of the more boring players we'll talk about, through these pods. But he's one of these guys that we do bang on about on the pod a lot, just guys who are very, very good safe options, especially if you're flag hunting. So Blitz bounced back to a 75 average last year, and as a defender, that's more than handy. We know that for sure. He actually had 3 BCV tons last year, and after a couple quiet years, looks to be on the return to some kind of fantasy relevance. I think a couple positives which help his outlook for some continued good scoring in 2021 is we saw him take a few more hit-outs last year. So his hit-outs were up 5 per game on the last few years. So, I did say that Radaglia might be in there, but Blitzar is another one who they could pinch hit in the ruck, especially around the ground. But also, he's super fit. He used to be an Olympic athlete or something like that. So he's going to be super fit, less interchanges, will get the opportunity to stay out on the ground longer. More time on the ground means probably more chance to score more points. I suppose that negative is, which we touched on before, no Harry Taylor. So I'm just a bit confused at who, Geelong will be playing at centre half back, or that taller back to go alongside Lockie Henderson. It might mean that Blitzars has to play that role and play a bit more in lockdown. So, look, I think end of the day, he's great cover. He's 29 years old. He's not going to be a game changer for you, but you'll get him mid to late in the draft and just a serviceable bloke who you can have there as a D4, 5 or just on your bench. I think he's pretty serviceable week in, week out.
Yeah, just thinking out a bit more as you were chatting there, Case. Bringing in blokes like Smith and Higgins does kind of free up him a bit more as well. Like, he won't have to spend as much time on a wing or anything like that. So yeah, it's potential, but the pinch hitting in the ruck is also a big factor there. So it depends who they go with there. They could play 3 tools with Asava Radaglia in there as well. Who knows? It'd be interesting to see the makeup. One thing I am certain of is they're going to be super competitive this year. Oh, yeah. And we'll be having a crack at that flag towards the end of the year.
Big time.
Sam Simpson, there was a lot of hype about him last season. He started 2020 off with a bang, scoring 102 in his first game of the year. He was playing in the midfield then, though, as a result of like a heap of midfield injuries. I think a few even got injured in that game from memory. But he didn't manage to score higher than 66 after that. And after that, it was a big drop-off. He played forward for the rest of the year, basically, when all those midfielders came back, and he finished with an average of 57.3, which is a 71.6 BCV. 2020 was his 4th year in the system. 2017, he played 5 games for an average of 39.4. 2018, he played just the 1 game and scored 31. So people will remember him for just what he did in his first game of 2020, I reckon. So I can't see him scoring like that consistently, especially because I just don't see him getting a run in that midfield. I think if he plays, he's as that kind of small forward or that general forward up there. So I'm not huge on Sam Simpson, but if you have a forward that can average 70, which is probably in his realm, it's probably not the worst option as cover or your last forward. The issue is, does he play? I just would rather go with someone who's got a bit more job security. What are your thoughts?
Similar thoughts. I think he obviously he can get big scores. He proved that in that first game he played. But obviously the role changes and the Cats want those prime movers running through that midfield, whether it's Dangerfield, Duncan, Selwood. So someone like Simpson probably not going to get a lot of cracks at it. He's that weird tallish hybrid size as well. Like he's not really a super speedy small midfielder. He's that rangy kind of looking dude. So, he's probably going to fight someone like Constable for a game if they're around the mark. But, where they fit into that side, it's going to be interesting. But, one I'm not necessarily going to be targeting in a draft. Sure, if he slips late, he might be a good pickup. But not someone I'm going to target early in my draft.
Yeah, same boat, Case. All right, let's move on.
Right, on to someone who I'm very, very excited about. It is Jordan Clark. Genuinely one of the crimes of 2020 could turn out to be the bargain pickup for coaches in 2021. Honestly, can't believe the Cats didn't give Clark much of a go last year. Only got 3 games in 2020 after his 18 games back in 2019. Look, there were rumours about potential fitness issues and, body not being in the right shape for AFL level, but come on, man. The kid is an absolute star. I think last year in the grand final, the Cats' pace was exposed. And annoyingly, I suppose it's seen, Isaac Smith arrives, who's got heaps of that. But I think Clark can get a proper crack at it this year if they do want to inject a bit more speed through that midfield. He averaged 63 in 2019, but did register some scores of 88, 89, 95 and 96, which is very good going for a kid in his first year. Look, and even in his 3 games last year, he averaged a 70 BCV. And his PB was 81 points, so 72% time on ground. So really good going points per minute wise there. Well, I'm actually really super keen on his chances to get into this side this year. There's been a bit of, chat around the circles that Clark's ready to go this year. And I hope he does because he's very, very handy. Obviously, what I do like even more is he gets his defender status back this year. He was at mid only last year. He's a defender this year, which is a big tick. 3rd year, breakout year, we know that. Basically free swing as a defender as well. So I'd definitely be holding him in a league if you own him. I reckon there's a lot of upside there. And if you don't, I think potentially one you could target, one you could get out of a fellow coach this year for a good deal.
Yeah, it's just a question of best 22. And what's going to be hard, and we probably should have mentioned is at the top, we're only going to see these teams for one game this year as well. So that's going to make it even harder. But definitely potential to slide in a draft if he's available just because of that factor as well. So you could get a pretty good deal on him, or you could target him in a trade period or whatever. And you may snag him for a bit cheaper than you usually would. But being a keeper league, I think long term, you've got no worries with him. It's just this year whether he plays. So I guess you assess where your team's at, whether you need someone to play consistently this year, just if you want to take that risk. If you don't want to take the risk, maybe he's not someone you go for this year, but someone I reckon he will be handy in the future.
I just think for him, if you're keen on him, have a crack at him, because it'll be one that you'll be kicking about later if you let him slip through the cracks, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. Jeremy Cameron, so he was really down last year. He reached 87.5 on the back of a 76-goal season in 2019. Then last year he could only manage 51.1, and that was a BCV of 63.8. He only kicked 24 goals last season, so I think there's a good reason for this, though. So GWS were basically a shadow of their former selves, and they just weren't. He wasn't getting the supply. So I had a look at some stats. Their inside 50s were horrendous. They were ranked 16th in the competition last year. Just were not getting the ball forward. They were doing everything but just going sideways, going backwards, and not going forward. It was really strange to see, especially with a team that has such a dominant midfield and can move the ball really well. The only worst teams for inside 50 were Crows and Fremantle. So that says something, I reckon. He also probably didn't. They probably knew he was on the way out for a while, I think, as well. You can make a case that usually that makes you play better, but sometimes if your head's just not in the right space, you're in a hard ball, that sort of stuff, you don't want to be there anymore. Maybe you don't get on with your teammates that well. I don't know. It might affect your playing.
Rumours.
Not rumours. I'm just speculating as to why this. I'm basically making excuses.
Get a job in the AFL media with stuff like that.
Making excuses for him as to why his performances might not have been that good last season. But anyway, he moves to the Cats. Oh, that said as well, I've got that written here. He doesn't really strike me as a player who would enjoy a hub.
Loves fishing, doesn't he?
Yeah, just likes being out and about and not being inside and all that sort of shit. So, I don't know. Anyway, move to the Cats. He's averaged... the Cats averaged the 5th most inside 50s. So we should see an uptick in his goal kicking there, I think. So that's a big plus for him. The concerns people have is him playing alongside Tomahawk, but he played alongside 3 tools anyway. I know he was probably head and shoulders ahead of the other two, but... look, I think Tomahawk's probably the one who's going to take a hit, if anything. And I think Jeremy Cameron, he's the future. They'll definitely be targeting him with Hawkins playing more of the support role. So it'd be good for Cameron just to have someone to help him take the heat off as well. Someone as good as Tomahawk is. And I guess with... when you compare back to GWS, Finlayson and Himmelberg, they just weren't, much chop in comparison to Tom Hawkins. So that's why I think he would just actually have like an actual body there, and defenders actually have to think about the way they play them and stuff like that, which is going to be really good for him. So I'm tipping him to bounce back.
Big time. He's a genuine top 20 forward, I reckon, top 30 forward. And... he's probably going to have to play up the ground a bit more because Tom Hawkins will play closer to goal, which, we do like those forwards getting up the ground, getting the kicks and marks along the wing. Obviously, then you swing back and kick a fair few goals. So, I'm massive raps on Cameron returning to his 2019 ways in 2021.
All right, let's move on, Case.
Right, a couple of Cats players to finish off. We're going to go with Luke Dalhurst first. I'm actually old enough to remember the days when Luke Dalhurst was a premium forward, Hef. You remember those days?
Did he have dreadlocks then?
Yeah. He played at the Bulldogs. He was actually quite good. But those days are well and truly long gone. Think about this. 2016, he was a 92 average forward, and last year he ended it as a 66 average forward. So gross. That is a huge drop-off in 3 or 4 years. And it's probably always predicted that when he arrived at the Cats, his fantasy ability was going to drop truly because coming in playing that small forward role at the side, which he does very well, but just obviously hurts his fantasy scoring. Look, I suppose in his defence, he does actually have a pretty high floor. We just he never really scores under 50, but we just don't see those 100, 80s, 90s, 100s, which we did when he was back at the Dogs. So probably slots in a F4, 5 spot in your side. And we do know forwards are scarce this year, but for me, I'd be hunting someone who either has the ability to notch up some bigger scores or a youngster who has the chance to really develop into something. Dalhouse, I'm not sure how old he is. He'd be late 20s. So we kind of know what role he's playing in the side. It doesn't look like he's ever going to get into the midfield in the Cats side.
Nah.
You just kind of know his role. And if you're happy to bank a 50 or 60 each week, sure, he's going to be fine, but I don't necessarily think he's capable anymore. And just someone you can probably target mid-range, especially if you're hunting a flag, just someone who's regularly playing and regularly scoring an okay score.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I don't see him being a star like he probably once showed potential to be, especially in Geelong.
Yeah.
Maybe if he would have stayed at the Bulldogs, but even though they have a million midfielders anyway now, so it doesn't really matter. There was a bit of talk that he might feel a bit more of Ablett's role, but with Higgins coming in, I just can't see that happening either. So, he's not for me. But, if you need someone to kind of make out your last forward, he's not the worst option as well.
No, I agree. Another guy who has probably been hurt by the arrivals of Smith and Higgins, which seems to be a consistent thread across this pod, is Tom Atkins. Now, he's a genuine handball and tackling machine, but I think that's probably it. Was a very, very solid VFL player before landing in the AFL. As a mature age player in 2019. I kind of liken him a bit to Michael Gibbons, but potentially not as good, and definitely has less opportunity in the Cats side. But there's been a bit of talk that he might go back this year, but I think the Cats have a strong enough backline that I don't think we'll be seeing Tommy Atkins back there. He'll have his occasional good days, but I think if he's in that best 22, he is just really a role player, whether it's pressure forward, crumbing forward, or maybe even a tagger. So he's always going to be crucified by having to have that team role. He's never going to be able to go off the leash and dominate like he had in the VFL in the past. Solid backup for the Cats, solid backup for your fantasy side. Just, not one I'm too keen on taking too early or even in too middle. I think, it's a nice forward fill up late in a draft. Could be handy, but not one I'm too excited about this year.
Yeah, the best 22 factor is the big thing there. I can't see it happening. Cats fans, if you think any different, let us know in the chat, I guess, or the comments when this comes out. But personally, just can't see him getting consistent enough of game to actually just be worth bothering with at the moment. No. Anyways, let's move on to the next team, K's. All right, on to the Gold Coast Suns. You got a best 22 for us, Case?
I sure do, Hef. We'll start off the back line as usual. Back pocket, Charlie Ballard, Sam Collins and Connor Buderick. Half back line, birthday boys, Jack Bowes, Jack Lukosius and Rory Atkins. On the wing, Brandon Ellis, Took Miller, Lockie Weller. Half forward line of Hugh Greenwood, Sam Day and Ben Ainsworth. Forward line, Isaac Rankin, Ben King and Alex Sexton. In the ruck, Jared Witts, David Swallow and Matty Rao. On the pine, Noah Anderson, Will Powell, Oleg Markov and Sam Flanders. Then the emergencies of Elijah Hollins, Darcy McPherson, Braden Fiorini and Jared Harbrow.
Oh, so you've actually got Fiorini in your emergencies?
Emergencies.
Yeah, okay. Have you put any draftees in any of your teams yet?
No. Crows, I had Phil Thorpe in there.
Yeah, that's right. Because you don't really know enough about them after not seeing them. But you'd suspect in real life there'll probably be a few more coming out of the
Probably.
woodwork.
I think, North Melbourne will be blooding a few. I think it's really tough because we just don't know enough about a lot of these draftees.
Yeah. I thought Hollins might be one to sneak in, but when I look at the side, I think you've got a pretty good makeup there. I can see them rolling with a side that looks like that. I like that you've got Markov and Atkins straight in because I think they are good options, especially when you think of Harbrow's I think he's been relegated to the rookie list, hasn't he?
And he's like assistant coaching or something like that.
Sort of stuff. Yep. So I can't see him playing too much. Hanley retired. So, and they were both playing pretty consistent. Or, they played a few games last year. So I can see just those guys kind of slotting into the halfback or into defender roles as well. Do you see Lukosius playing a key post, or do you see him more of a running interceptor, third tall type thing? Because they might play another tall there, or they might play Ballard in a key position.
Well,
post.
I think that Ballard, Collins will take your bigger guy. Ballard will be that next one, and then I think they'll just kind of play Lukosius on who they think he can kind of be most aggressive against.
Yeah, it makes sense because he's kind of taller, but they're taking a lot away from their attack there.
That's
true.
So. Yeah, but
then Charlie Ballard is also not the greatest key defender as well. So it's really interesting.
He's serviceable lockdown, I think. Yeah. But if you look at their forward line, Ben King's obviously going places. Sam Day played some really good footy last year, and Alex Sexton's a very good forward too. So I don't think at the moment they need Lukosius up forward.
Little guy called Rankin who's alright as well.
Yeah, but I'm talking big boys.
Sexton's not that big, but I guess he's bigger than Rankin.
He's bigger than Rankin.
That's true. All right, who you got first, Case?
Righty, I'm going to start off with my boy Benny Ainsworth. Very, very big on this guy, and as I said, I reckon he could be very close to my boy if he starts this year off nicely. I think I made the call on Twitter late last year that I reckon he could be a top 20 forward this year, and I'm going to stand by that comment because he averaged 77 last year, which I actually thought was 2G for PHEF, but we're obviously lifting the standards here on the pod.
What was it?
77.
BCV.
Yeah.
No, but then it has to be 80. Like 64 is you get it confused.
You change the rules all the time.
64 actual, 80 BCV is the.
Right, yeah. Well, he's bloody close, listeners. 77. And he did have some very, very good games. Also had a couple quiet games, which obviously brings him down there. He actually even registered a Corona ton with 107 points against the Kangas, and that was from only 79% time on ground. He went home really, really hot, averaged 95 in his last 4 games, and I actually think that's closer to the mark that he can get to. He played the connector role really, really well at times last year, similar to what Tom Lynch did when the Crows were up and about a few years ago. He's got a high kick mark style of game, and I think he can take that next step forward. The best thing is he probably doesn't have real high trade value, so it might be one you could get off someone. He's never leaving my team. I think he's very, very good, but I'm reckon he's going to be one that will just take a big jump, especially up the forward ranks this year.
He showed his best kind of football though when he was kind of doing a little bit of midfield stuff here and there, which he just doesn't seem to be getting like he was at the end of 2019, start of last year. So I'm not super hyped on him, but there is so much potential there. You just can't ignore him because he does have the goods. And like I said, if he can jump into a Tom Lynch quiet style role that actually does get you a bit of the, few marks, few kicks, all that sort of stuff, a few more possessions there, that's the role he'll need to play to be a good fantasy scorer. Whether he's the one to get it, like he's probably the most likely for Gold Coast. It's just whether they play that style.
Yeah, I think he's going to be that one. And the good thing about Ainsworth is last year was really his only full season footy. Like I think he was like a number 4 or very high draft pick back in the day. Just never got a crack at it with injury. So we actually saw him get a full run at it last year. And I think if he can continue to work off that, the sky's the limit for him.
All right, we'll move on to Jack Lukosius. Now, this guy was very close to being 2G, 4P.
Average 77 or something like that?
No, well, you put far too much weight on BCV, I think, because you only talk BCV when you do your numbers as well. I'm a bit more wary because I don't think they tell the whole story. I don't like just going blank at 1.25. Yeah, I just don't like going. Well, that's
I'm
why
a simple man, Hef. I just like keeping me and our listeners on the same level.
Well, that's why I always mention the two. I always go, this is the real average, and this is the BCV average. This is what AFL Fantasy have classed them as. You're the one who doesn't like classic, mate, and you're the one going by their price. You're the one going by their scoring system.
Sorry, classic.
Watch it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm just not very good at it.
I think that's more the reason. Yeah, you hate yourself.
No, I hate that. I don't like doing things I'm not good at, and that's one of them. So
you don't get better, mate, unless you fail a few times.
Then I have to try.
I know. Trying.
I'd rather just be really good at this.
All right. All those premierships you win in this.
Hey, I won the Podcasters League last year.
The one that no one ever checks. Yeah,
doesn't matter.
Good on your case.
Someone's got to win it.
Anyways, it's so close to being 2G, 4P. He was actually ranked the 153rd ranked player. So we all know the story. Drafted as a key forward, put behind the ball in defence. We're not sure if that was just for a learning experience or they wanted to actually exploit his skills. Either way, it paid off because he's an absolute gun back there. So he's proven too good to actually come away from that halfback role now, I feel, for Gold Coast. Although it would be handy to just, if you're struggling for an option up forward, just to throw him up there. Geez, it'd be nice to have that luxury in the side.
Wouldn't it?
But anyway, they want to exploit his skills anyway, and he is such a gun player. He averaged 62.3, which is a 77.9 BCV, included some big scores. He had 107, which is 133 BCV against Richmond in round 12. He also had 87, which is 108.8 BCV, and that was against Carlton in round 13. Tons in Supercoach too, and whilst we're not big Supercoach players, you look at a player like that and with his kind of skill set, you think he should be a gun in that format. Look, kick to handball ratio was absolutely stunning case. 13 kicks, 4 handballs per game. That's over 3-1
Love that
ratio. That's amazing. He's a big fella, but doesn't take a heap of grabs, but I reckon that'll improve as his body fills out a bit more. He was still pretty skinny last year, but I think this year he'll start to bulk up a bit and he'll start to be able to hold his own a bit more in the contests. And because we saw him as a junior player, he was so good on the leads and taking grabs like that. Because he's playing behind the ball, he's not making the same sort of runs, but I think once his contested marking improves a little bit more, which I have no doubts that it will, he'll be an absolute gun. So get on board Jack Lukosius. He'll be 2G 4P very soon, I feel. So
where was my Ben Ainsworth 2G 4P?
Oh, sorry, mate, I wasn't listening. I was actually just getting through the comments on the chat.
Jack Lukosius is only in his 3rd year this year. Yeah. Like, it's ridiculous how good he's become as a pretty wiry defender, key position player. So look, I think the sky is honestly the limit for what he could do. He could be one of those genuinely good tall guys.
So we've just noticed that Warnie's actually listening after Kay says, I hate AFL fantasy.
No, I retracted that quite quickly. I'm just not very good at it.
G'day, Warnie. How you going, mate?
Hey, Warnie. I really it's a skill to do what you guys do. I got no bloody idea. And even Hef, you know, even though he thinks he's good.
Backpedaling now. It's okay, Kay.
Come on, man.
I think he's taking the piss. It's fine.
Anyway, he talks BCV. We're on the same language. You know, so we understand each other.
Next one. Keep going.
All right. Noah Anderson. I can't believe he's not 2G4P already.
Oh, sorry.
Look, he continued to develop and shine last year after Raul went down injured. But what I loved, he just looks so polished. And obviously Raul will get a lot of attention again this year, which is rightfully so. He's a jet. But Anderson is one you definitely shouldn't sleep on. Knocked up 280s last year, which did equate to 100 BCVs. Is that right?
Yeah.
Got it right. Well done. Averaged 16 touches, 3 marks and 2 tackles a game, which is a very, very nice debut season for the kid. What I love is he didn't slow down towards the end of the year, which, you know, we do see that some debutants kind of, you know, come out firing and then just slowly get too tired as the year goes on. But he ended up having 20 touches in 5 of his last 6 games, and 2 of them are 25 pluses. So I doubt too many coaches will be delisting him, which does suck. But if he does find a way to the pool, just in terms of, you know, you might only keep 10 or something like that, I think he's one you should definitely be targeting because I still think he flew under the radar. Should have been a lot higher in the rising star. You know, Rao's the big name in that side, but Anderson is just low flying. I like him a lot.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely underrated just from Rao last year and the way everyone's talking about him. And even though Rao didn't play after round 5, he still flew under the radar. In that emerging Gold Coast talent, I definitely think he is a pivotal part for them going forward. He kind of offers something a little bit different, I think, as well. A bit more of an outside kind of game, a bit more class. The class of Rao is hard to pretty much match to as well. But it's
different kind of players.
Yeah,
like,
they're going to complement each other so well.
Rao's like a ball and that, whereas
yeah.
Anderson just kind of floats around and just uses the ball beautifully.
Yeah, I reckon he's absolutely going to be a gun. Let's talk about Will Brodie. Now, I'm actually surprised there hasn't been more chatter this week on our Twitter asking about Will Brodie.
Because people are giving up.
Probably a very good reason. And if that's the case, then I'm very proud of our listeners for being smart fantasy coaches. Look, he's got forward status, but you've just got to get over it, all right? I'm especially talking to the guy who owns Will Brodie in our league as well. It means shit when he's not going to play. So he managed one game, I think it was round 1, and he scored 45. He was playing forward for that game as well, so that shows you what he actually scores when he does play forward, not in the midfield. And if he does play, it's likely going to be up forward, so he's just not going to score anyway. But I just don't even see him playing. He's out of favour with Stuart Dew. There's a heap of kids he rates higher. Doesn't have the tank to run both ways, which has been one of his biggest knock, and it's been widely documented in the media as to that's why he's not playing. I think those kids are just going to keep developing their running power and things like that and play the style of game that Dew wants, particularly like they're coming up under him as well, and he's, you know, specifically molding them to play the style he wants as well. Look, everyone's got it in his head that he's going to be a gun fantasy scorer when he plays, but in reality, he's only really had the one good season, and in that season, he only played 8 games. So he averaged 87.8 from the 8 games in 2019. 2018, he played 8 games for an average of 68, 3 games in 2017 for an average of 64. Like, yes, within those seasons, he's had some big games and shown some glimpses, and he's done the things we like of like a good fantasy scorer. Like when they're emerging, they'll have like, a consecutive 80s or something like that. Nothing huge, but shown that they do have the potential. But I think just without the development of actually playing, it's not going to move too much forward. He did have a score of 142 once against North. That was in 2019. So I think people really get hyped about that one as well. And he's only had 2 career tons though from his 20 games that he's played so far. So I think people just need to let Will Brodie go. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, I think the main thing was there was so much chat around in the trade period that Brodie's going to go to Essendon or he's going to go somewhere, but he didn't go anywhere. So, like, do other clubs not rate him as well, or I think he's signed until 2022, so he's still got 2 more years stuck at Gold Coast, potentially not playing unless someone wants to take him this next trade period. So, you know, he's not playing. No one else really wanted him. You know, it's not really a good recipe for playing games this year in a very, very good Gold Coast Sun side, I think.
Yeah, I think the development of the younger ones is definitely going to hurt him. All right, Kays, I'm sure you've got heaps to talk about Braden Fiorini. What have you come up with?
What? How do you slip into this, Doc?
What do you mean?
Are we doing a VFL fantasy draft this year?
Surely people, our listeners, want to know about Braden Fiorini.
Next.
Okay, fine. We won't talk about Braden Fiorini. He's not even B2P. He's lower than B2P. I don't have a button for that. shit, I need to make one.
He's like Will Brodie, but more hated. So I'm not really sure what's going on.
Quite similar to Will Brodie. I just don't see how he gets a game either.
Look, if he plays, he's going to score well. But then he played those games last year in a role that wasn't
similar type to Brodie. Played a forward.
Wasn't really in his wheelhouse and just struggled. So I've got other kids ahead of you, unfortunately. Sorry, Braden.
Don't want to talk about him. That's fine. I'll talk about Isaac Rankin there.
Go for it. Now we're talking.
Look, he burst onto the scene last year, had back-to-back Supercoach tons in his first game. He put up reasonable scores in fantasy too for a small forward. So he averaged 48.7, which is a 60.8 BCV, but his top score was a 72, which was a 90 BCV in his second game against Sydney. So I think he tied towards the end of the season, and first year coming off a huge hamstring injury. The year before, I think he might have just not been quite up to the rigours of AFL footy, and that kind of caused him to taper off. Look, normally I'd advise against picking up small forwards, but I think he's a special talent. So he has the potential to be an absolute star and has the skills, I think, to run through the midfield one day and have a huge impact, sort of like your Robbie Gray kind of does and kind of moved into eventually. Look, the Gold Coast midfield might be too strong, so we might have to wait and see what happens there. But if you can find a way to stash him on your list for 2 years, I think you'll definitely be rewarded. Not sure if I recommend keeping him in our league where we only keep 16, but perhaps draft him this year with the aim of him having a big year next year. Once he has another season under the belt, so you can keep him at the end of next year. But in Supercoach, because he's got that skill set, I think didn't he kick like 3 goals with his first 3 kicks? Was very close, or am I imagining that?
Kicked a couple of bags early in his career,
So I think just that sort of kicking efficiency, I think he's going to be a Supercoach gun. So I think he's a goal there this year for sure. What do you reckon about Rankin?
I think he's going to be stuck in that forward pocket for a while, and it's not really a knock on what he could do in the midfield. It's just the fact that he's so good at what he does up forward, and even looking at some of the newer rivals at Gold Coast, like Jeremy Sharp, we didn't really see last year. Flanders, we didn't really see. Hollands, who has just come there. I think that they're probably more likely to get a go in around that midfield before Rankin does, purely because he's so good at what he does up forward. So I think you could almost forget about that midfield time for a while and just sit back and enjoy the Rankin Sharp forward, because he's good at that. Obviously, it's not always conducive to scoring in the regular fantasy format, but look, as a super coach, it's probably worth looking into him, I'd say.
For sure. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, Will Powell. So I think he's a guy who's really flying under the radar for the Suns, and 2021 could be the time to pounce on him, so who can play in defence or on the wing. In his 9th AFL game, which was round 1 2019, had 108 there. So scores since have kind of varied due to his role on that side, but he has had some impressive games last year with that run and dash. Had 105 BCV. Sorry, Hef, I don't know what that equates to, not in regular Corona ball, but 105 BCV against the Pies in round 17. We had 22 touches, 6 marks and 2 tackles. He keeps a defender status this year, which is something I really, really like. And I reckon a guy you can get quite cheap in a draft. Not really one of the big names for the Gold Coast side, and unless you really look into kind of what he's done in the past, a lot of coaches will kind of let him go, and I think you'll get him mid to late quite nicely, I should say. And I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he can almost make a home for himself on that wing. He's got the pace, he's got the skill set. There are some mixed results, but I think he's one worth persisting with. And look, with a back centre DPP, a bit of a free swing, I think.
I think we brought him up a couple times on the Waywater podcast last year because, again, I really like looking at him as well. I thought he was great. Played a fantasy style coming off that half-back line as well. I think he was drafted as a midfielder, but he's one of those players that's kind of adapted, I think, his game to actually fit in to the Gold Coast side. So that's what I really like to see. He's someone I'd be targeting pretty highly if I didn't have a million defenders already. So that's the only issue I have with him.
That's
that's me personally. That's not with other coaches. So I think he's definitely one that you want to have a look at. I just wish we had more than one preseason game to have a look at these guys. But we'll have to make our best assessment.
It's going to be interesting to see whether the teams play like their strongest 22.
They're going to, because they won't have another chance. So, they will have that scratch match, but I think they will.
Next up is a guy who could be an absolute bargain for the coaches who want to do their research. It's Rory Atkins. So a quick glance will show you that last year the Rat only averaged a miserly 44 points. But where he actually played, he averaged 73, 81, 79 and 81. So the Rat was injured and checked out of Hotel California. Last year, he didn't want to be around the club at all. Never really got the chance to improve on that score and kind of finished the year as a really shitty.
Sorry, I just realised you said Hotel California.
Yeah.
I thought you stuttered there or something.
No.
Okay, good pun.
It was deliberate. Thank you. Where am I at? I'm pretty proud of that one. Because you can check out anytime, but you can never leave. It feels like that culture down at Westlake sometimes.
Anyway.
But look, the Suns obviously recruited him for a reason, and that's probably to play off that halfback or on a wing. And I reckon it'll give him a lot of drive and the leadership they kind of need there. Look, we know that Harbrow's kind of on the way out and Hanley's gone. So basically that spot opens up purely for them. And really, I don't think there's any reason why he can't, get close to that 80 average again. The Gold Coast are a pretty fantasy-friendly scoring team. He knows how to find the pill. And I think that you could get him for a steal, especially in a startup keeper league or even just a regular draft league, just sitting at that low, average from last year. He's only 26, so there's plenty of upside. He's going to still have another good 3 or 4 years ahead of him. And everyone loves an 80 averaging back.
Surely Crotel was the better pun.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I don't know when I wrote that.
Anyway, the Rat. I don't mind him, to be honest. I hated him as a Crows player. Didn't like him at all. But as a fantasy scorer, like a few years ago when he was I think it was in his second, third year, he actually looked like a third-year breakout candidate type. But I guess thrown around a lot of different roles at the Crows. So if I think he can lock down a consistent halfback flank role, he could be okay, especially in a Gold Coast side that's still kind of emerging. Yeah, definitely one to look at, I think. Not going to go all in straight away.
No, but I just think he's going to be bargained purely from what he came last year. And a lot of people just, they don't have, they're lazy when they're doing their research or their ranks and, he's on the way out kind of thing. And then he's actually an 80 average defender. So I just think he might be a bargain.
Do you feel like there's a lot of defender options this year?
Especially I'm flush with them.
This level. I think we all are. Feels like we are.
Yeah.
And especially
when defenders are so hard to get. And now I've got too many.
It's gone the opposite way. I think forwards are going to be the ones.
But, a lot of these guys also do have DPP. So, if you do need them, if say Roy Atkins is a defender, but you've got him as a M7, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Cam from the Draft Doctors has just commented Hotel California. Oh no. I thought that would be right up his alley, to be honest. But anyway, you learn something new every day. Anyway.
He obviously doesn't appreciate good humour.
Oh, he loves a shit pun, that's for sure. Monitors, we had a few that we didn't quite make the main show doc, but we thought they were worth keeping an eye on. Sam Flanders, stupid sexy Flanders. Forward who can run through the middle, averaged 90.1 in his draft year in the NAB League, 97.5 the under-18 champs, playing against the best of the best. Debuted last year, played 5 games, only averaged 31.2, has potential, just not sure he gets the role he needs. Will be right for the picking in a couple years, I think. Have you seen anyone else, Case?
Basically rinse and repeat there for Jeremy Sharp as well. Yeah. Just a bit of a slighter frame, probably needs another year in the system. I think he averaged, low 30s or mid 30s last year as well. So similar to Flanders, he'll get his opportunity. He just needs to bide his time in a pretty stacked kind of mid half forward side of.
So these are the kind of guys you start picking late in your draft this year for next year if you can hold them. I think is more the
because you don't really want to go too early on guys that might not play that much, especially even though they do have potential. And Connor Buderick's another one. Same draft as those guys.
He at least plays though.
He does play, but look, it's that small back pocket role that he's playing very nicely. He's playing a good team role there. Might have something, in terms of fantasy output. I think he just needs a couple years to develop, put on a bit more size as well. And, he could be pushing up onto that half back line or something like that.
We talked about him in the questions last week, what we thought about him. And we do think he has the makings of a fantasy player. It's just going to take a while, I think, given, I guess, his height and the role he's playing as well. Anyways, let's move on to the Giants. All right, on to the big sound. K's, give us your best 22.
Best theme song in the comp.
Should have left it playing longer.
Yeah. Could we have it just looping for the rest of this section?
Might get annoying.
Rightio, backline, Sam Taylor, Phil Davis, Adam Kennedy. Halfback line, Lockie Ash, Nick Haynes, Lockie Whitfield, Harry Perryman, Jacob Hopper and Josh Kelly. And we've got Brent Daniels, Jeremy Finlayson, Toby Green, with Harry Himmelberg, Jake Riccardi and Matty DeBoer. With Big Braden Pruce in the ruck, Stephen